Bandit here. Welcome back to the channel. We're back in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and for today's flight we are in the beautiful Alps in Austria at Flughafen in Innsbruck, and we're going to feature a flight in the recently released BlackSquare Analog Baron B58. Another great aircraft from BlackSquare, really gives a lot of depth to the aircraft. Much like the Analog King Air and the Analog Bonanza and the Analog Caravan. Great addition to the sim. And you do need the deluxe version of Microsoft Flight Simulator with the that includes the original Asobo Baron B58 in order to apply this upgrade. This is payware. It's about $30 US and well worth it, I think. Makes this a truly great airplane to fly. Yeah, so we're going to do a quick flight to Linz, Austria. It's about an hour flight, and we're going to do a RNAV departure out of Innsbruck, get above the mountains, and fly to Linz. And I'll just show you on the map here where that is, just north of the Alps. So we're in the Alps here, and we're going to leave Innsbruck, fly up the valley, get up to altitude, and then go direct to Nimal for the arrival into Linz, which is just north of the Alps here. So it should be a great trip. This is a perfect airplane for this type of flight because the Analog Baron includes two aircraft, the unpressurized version, the normal aspirated engines, and this one is the turbocharged version with the pressurized cabin. So it's great for these routes where you have to climb up a little higher. We're planning to go at 13,000 feet, but we can go higher if we need to get above the weather. Service ceiling on this airplane is about 25,000 feet. Anyway, yeah, so I think we'll get going here, hop in the cockpit, get things set up. So if you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. Take time, hit that subscribe button, sign up for notifications, and you'll see videos like this when I put them out in the future. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks again for joining me. Hope you enjoyed today's flight, so let's hop in the cockpit and get things going. Okay, we're here in the cockpit, and you can see the layout of the gauges. The stock Baron comes with the G1000, now with the NXI from working title. And this has the steam gauge 6-pack and basic radio package, and you can have different configurations of GPS. Right now I'm going to use the GTN750, but you can use the stock 530 and 430 that comes with the sim, and those are the working title mods. Have updated those as well, and you have your weather radar and include it. You can go with a single GPS, just the 430, and you can also go with no GPS, just a standard radio package. So for today's flight I'm going to go with the GTN750, and we'll also just have the 430, GSN 430 as well, or GNS 430 as well. So those are the different configurations you can have. As with the other Analog Barons, all the circuit breakers work, all the switches work, everything is functional. The system depth is really impressive with these aircrafts. So it's a great aircraft to fly. Uses the external model from the Asobo Baron. The only extra function is you can open the windows, but you can't open any doors or anything. And yeah, so it's definitely a great airplane. So let's get things programmed for the checklist. Comes with a manual, which includes a full paper checklist, but it pretty much the checklist, in-game checklist, well, mimics that checklist from the manual almost perfectly. So we'll just use this for today's procedure. It has lots of other checks in here, including like failure systems, engine failure, if you have a flat failure or something like that. The only problem with this checklist is that everything is kind of mixed up. It would be nice if they just had all the normal procedures first and then all the non-normal procedures later, because then non-normal procedures are kind of mixed in with. So rough running engine is, not in the normal flow of things. So you kind of have to search around for which checklist you need. So other than that, the checklists are very accurate, so we'll just use that for today. Okay, so I'll just get rid of that for now. Yeah, so we'll get the aircraft started. We'll run through the run-up checklist. We'll load the flight plan and get all that going as well. So we'll follow as much as we can. It's pretty time-consuming because the run-up is really long in this airplane if you do the full run-up. But it's good to take a look at it and see how it looks for the system depth of this aircraft. Okay, so let's get things going. Okay, we'll start off with the before starting checklist. Say the pre-flight inspection is complete, seatbelts are secure, cabin doors, we can't open them, but they're all locked. Parking brake is set, so our parking brake is down here. Emergency gear handle is stowed, and that is behind the seat, so I'll just kind of show you here. You can see it stowed there. Back to our normal view. Circuit breakers are all in, so you want to check, make sure they're all in because they can pop if there's a malfunction. So all the circuit breakers are in. Flaps are up. Avionics are off. Avionics switch is right here. Throttles are closed. Propellers, we can go full board. Mixtures, we can go full rich. Cowl flaps are open, so they're open in this position. That's the closed position. So cowl flaps are open. Aileron trim is centered. Rudder trim is centered. Landing gear lever is down. All sub-panel switches are off, so these are all the sub-panel switches, so they're all in the off position, being down. Main breakers are in, so those main breakers are in over there. Static air source is normal, and that is down here. We can just go down and have a look, so you can see it's in the normal position. CO2 detector test, and there's a CO2 detector in case we get fumes back, because it does, you take air off the turbochargers, I believe, for the pressurization system. So if you get exhaust fumes into the cabin, you have a CO2 detector test here. So we'll just do the test. Hit the test button, and there we go. Fuel selectors are on, and they're both on. Cabin pressure shutoff, and those are the cabin pressure shutoffs. So pushed is means they're on, pull is closed, and there's one for each engine, and they take air off the turbochargers to pressurize the cabin. Door seal is off. Cabin pressure is dump. Door seal mode is off, so that is right here, and that is off as well. Beacon light, I'll turn our nav light and our beacon light on. Battery master can go on. Bus volts minimum 23 for the start. Enunciator test. So here's all your enunciators up here, and there's a test button right here, and we just want to get them all in view so we can see they all light up. So there you go, all your enunciators, including your gear. Your flaps are all good. So enunciators checked. Left alternator on. Right alternator on. Fuel quantities checked. So we're half fuel on each main tank and half on each tip tank. There's tip tanks in the winglets there, or just on the edge of the end of the wings there. Extra fuel. It's about an extra 30 gallons of fuel total, I think. The tip tanks are good. Cabin heater. So the temperature right now is 2 degrees, so you can actually turn on the cabin heat. So you hear the gas. It's a gas heater. It's going to take fuel from the main tank, and I think it's the left main tank, and it burns about 1 gallon an hour. And we can turn a blower on, and then you control the heat output with this knob here. So I'm just going to pull it out a little bit, and we should see the temperature start to come up, get some heat going. So I'm just going to push it in a little bit more just so we don't get too hot, because it can heat up things pretty quick. So cabin heater is good. Low fuel boost pump, we're going to go to low, listen for an audible note, and then shut it off. So left pump, low, you just hear it, and right pump goes low. We could just barely hear the audible tone there. So that's both boost pumps are good, and that is our pre-flight check. Now the next check we're going to be start engine cold, but they do have hot and flooded, and I have flooded the engines and I've had to do the engine start flooded check before, but we're doing a cold start here. So we're going to look to the right and to the left. It's all clear. So the mixtures are full rich, propellers are full forward, throttles, we're going to fully open them. Take off those items. And then we're going to start the right engine first. So actually I'll just put the right throttle full forward, and then we're going to turn the boost pump on high for 2 to 3 seconds, and we're going to look for our fuel pressure, and that should be a minimum of 3 gallons per hour, and then we're going to shut them off. So we turn that on high, 1001, 1002, 1003, we got our pressures good, shut it off, and then we're going to close our throttle and just crack it for the start. So boost pump is good, fuel flow is good, bumps off, right throttle crack an inch, and then we're going to engage the right starter. And it's clear to the right, and we'll just back up so we can see it. We'll watch our engine gauge here, so hold the starter. And looks like a good start. Caught, and we're going to slowly advance the power to get it up to 1,000 to 1,200 RPM. So we're just watching the gauge here for the RPM. Okay, we got 1,000, and that's good. Oil pressure, and we got oil pressure in the green. The start annunciator is extinguished. Low volts is extinguished, and the right alternator is extinguished. Right alternator load should be below 25 amps, and it is. Just see it there, it's just below 25. And the volts are up to 28, so the battery's charging. So that looks good. Instruments checked. So you can see we got our suction air, and our instruments are now starting to come to life. Our attitude indicator is good. And now we're going to do the same thing with the left engine. So it'll be mixtures full forward, props full forward, bring our throttle full forward. We're going to turn left boost pump on for 3 seconds, check our fuel pressures above 3, 1002, 1003, pump off, bring our throttle back, crack it, let's clear to the left, and we'll gauge the left starter. Looks like a good start. Same thing, we'll increase the throttle slowly, getting it up to 1,000 RPM. We check our lights are out, starter is out, and the generator is out. So full rich, high, that's all good. Boost pump, starter engaged, 1,000 RPM. Oil pressure is in the green. Start annunciator is extinguished, low voltage is extinguished. Left alternator is extinguished, and the left alternator load and is below 25 amps, and the bus is 28 volts for the bat bus. Engine instruments checked again, and that is our start. So we got a good start. And what we're going to do is we are going to do our run up here, because the run up takes quite a bit of time, and I got the FS traffic on, or FSLTL traffic on, so one of these planes might leave here. There's nothing behind us, so we'll just hop outside here. It's all clear behind us, so we can do the run up right here. So we'll do the pre-taxi check, and then we'll get ready for the run up. So after starting, we'll do that. So lights as required, we'll just leave the radar, we can go standby, and it is in standby. Lights are good. Whoop. Lights are good. Weather radar standby. Avionics, we can go on. Cabin heat air is desired, so 15 degrees. I can pull it out just a little bit more, get the temperature up. Air conditioning is not required. Mixture, and we're going to lean for taxi, and we're going to lean until we do a run up while we program it. So they recommend leaning the engine, so I pull them about half back on the mixtures. They recommend leaning them on the ground, because what will happen is if you If you don't lean them with the mixture too rich, it'll foul your spark plugs, and then you'll have a rough running engine. And I've had that happen here with this aircraft as well. So I was doing a bunch of stuff on the ground for about 20 minutes, and I had the mixtures rich the whole time, and the engines were really rough when I went to take off, and I had to abort the takeoff. So anyway, very realistic for that kind of stuff in here. So you really want to make sure you follow the checklist for that. I'm just going to hit enter on here to get that going. So make sure it's lean for taxi, parking brake. We'll check the brakes when we actually taxi. And actually, I can check them now real quick. I'll just release the brakes. And we'll just inch forward, check the brakes, and we'll put our parking brake back on. So brakes are checked. So that's all good. And next will be our run-up checklist. So run-up checklist, and you can see this is fairly extensive. It's about 83 items. But first we'll program in our flight plan. So mixtures are reduced, and let's go and do our flight plan next. Okay, I'll just close the checklist for now. We'll go to our flight plan. Clear that message. Yeah, we have no departure. So LOWI, that's Innsbruck. We're going to go to LOWL. That's Linz. And for the departure, load procedure, we're going to do the RTT to Quebec off of runway 8. So that is RTT, and it is 520, 521, 522 in RTT. So that all looks good. Excuse me, we'll load that departure. And that is all good. There's no altitudes associated with any of those. Then we'll add an en route waypoint, and our flight plan is right here. I'll just bring it up. So we're doing the RTT to Quebec to RTT, then direct NEMAL, NEMAL, to that, and we want the one in Austria. And then we're going to do the NEMA 1 kilo for runway 8 as our arrival. So we'll load that in. So we'll go down to procedures for arrival. And we want the NEMA 1 kilo for runway 8. And no transition. So we'll load that as just NEMAL to the fix Arisa. Okay, so that looks good. So I'll load that, and that is our flight plan. Might as well set up our initial autopilot. So we'll say on departure we're going to be cleared to our flight plan altitude of 13,000 feet. We'll put that in, and our track. So the map. We'll just look at that. Zoom out. That all looks good. And our initial track is 076, so we'll put that in. And that's runway heading as well. So we'll dial that in as well. Okay, so that is all set. So we got our course track. We need to activate our GPS for our track outbound, and that's all set. So that's all our flight plan loaded and ready to go. So now we are ready to do the run-up checklist. Okay, the run-up checklist. So we'll get the checklist here. We have run-up. So parking brake is set. Enunciators, we'll test them again. All the enunciators look good. Remote compass is slaved in the line, so it's slaved, and the compass, yeah, we're pretty much parallel to the runway heading. That looks pretty good. Mixtures, we need full rich for the run-up. Throttles, we're going to set to 1700 RPM, and there's our throttles, so we'll just advance those, and we'll just check around. Everything is clear. So we'll bring it up to 1700. Brakes are holding good. there's 1700. Now we're going to exercise each propeller, and we're going to look for a 300 drop. Plus you'll see a little jump in the oil pressure as well. So watching our propeller RPM, so sorry, size of propeller, so right propeller, so we get a drop in RPM, little bump in the oil pressure, bring it back up, exercise the left propeller, drop in RPM, little bump in the oil pressure. Oh, it's good. So left, right, propeller is good. Now we're going to check our magnetos, and we're going to shut off each magneto, and we're going to look for no more than 150 drop. So we got, get back to 1700 here. So I'll check the right mag on the right engine, and no more than 150 drop there. And check the right mag on the left engine, or sorry, left mag on the left engine. And again, no more than 150 drop. Let it recover. We'll check the right mag on the right engine, and no more than 150 drop. And we'll check the right mag on the left engine, and no more than 150 drop. So all the magnetos are good. Instrument error is in the green, and we have no lights. Left alternator, we are going to shut off the left alternator. We're going to check our load drop. So load drops, the right alternator takes a load. We're going to shut off the right alternator. Load drops on both. Then we're going to turn on the right alternator. It takes all of the load. Or sorry, turn on the left alternator. It takes all of the load. And we're going to turn on the right alternator, and then it splits the load. So that is our alternator check. And the alternator lights are extinguished. We need to check those actually. So check that the alternator lights come on with each. And the load is not above 10 amps, so that's all good. Now we're going to turn on our propeller heat. So here's the amps for the prop, and we're going to check that we should get a bump in the overall load, and we should get our propeller heat amps checked. So there's our propeller, get a bump in overall load, and it'll cycle through the propeller, showing the propeller amp load for each time it cycles. I'm not going to watch it cycle for every time, and then we'll turn it off, and we'll just check that our load drops down there. So there we go. So that's our propeller amp is checked. Now we'll check propeller heat is off, windshield heat on, and we're just going to check that the windshield light enunciates. So windshield light enunciates, and we should see a little bump in the load there. So ammeter increase, and then we'll shut it off, and the light should go out, and the ammeter decrease. So this time we'll look down here to see that it decreases. So we get a small decrease, and the light goes out. Now we're going to do the same thing with the left pitot heat. We're going to just check that the light comes on and get a small ammeter increase. So left pitot heat, light comes on, and we got a small increase. Shut it off, small decrease, light goes out. We're going to do the same with the right. Light on, small increase, off, and decrease. So that's pitot heat. Now we're going to do the fuel vent, same thing. Fuel vent, no light comes on, but we're going to just check that we got a small increase in our load. And we're going to do the same thing with the stall warning. And you can just see very small increases in the load. Okay, so surface de-ice. Next we're going to look for that. So see down here there's a little external icing pressure gauge, and we're going to put it in manual, and we're going to see that this reads, and you kind of have to hold the switch down. So put it in manual, and then you'll see the switch, the gauge over here will go from 15 to 20 psi. So hold it manual, and it goes between 15 and 20 psi, so that's good. And we get a boot pressure light enunciate. It's kind of hard to see everything at once here, so we'll do that again. There's our boot pressure light, and the pressure is good. And now we're going to put it in auto, and then we should get the boot pressure, and then it'll cycle between all the different segments on the wings and the tail. So you can see it cycling between each segment in the auto mode. And we'll turn that off. So surface de-ice is off. Cockpit window is closed because we're going to do a pressurization test now. Now we need to bump the throttles up to 2,000 RPM. That's so we can get some more pressure off the turbochargers. So there's 2,000 RPM. Cabin altitude, we're going to put field elevation. And field elevation here is 1,900 feet. So there's 1,900 feet. Cabin differential is 0, and that's the small needle. And you can see the cabin altitude is actually our altitude of about 1,900 feet right now. With the rate of climb to 10 o'clock. We're going to set the cabin altitude goal 1,000 feet below field elevation, so we'll put it down to 900 feet. We're going cabin pressure mode to pressure, door seal mode to pressure, and we're going to do the cabin test, and so we're going to put it in cabin test, and we're going to observe descent, and you can't really see the gauge here very well because the prop lever's in the way. I'll just pull it back a little bit. Well, I really don't want to do that, but anyway, you got to watch for a decrease in the gauge here. So when I hit test, then I got to so hit test, and you can see the gauge just decrease. So test and hold, observe the descent. So we did that. Cabin altitude goal, we're going to put in our first assigned altitude, which is going to be 13,000 feet. So there's 12, 14, so 13,000 feet. It's our initial altitude. Cabin pressure mode to dump. Dump. Door seal off. Off. Put our mixtures back up. And that is it for the cabin pressurization check. Now we're going to go back to 1,000 RPM on the engines. So we'll get back to 1,000 RPM. And I'm going to bring the mixtures back now because the rest of our checks are going to be at we don't need any power on, so bring the mixtures back so we don't foul the spark plugs. So throttle set. Now we're going to check our electric trim. So we check our electric trim, and you can just see it moving over here. You see the trim moving. We'll set our trim for takeoff, and that looks good. It's in the green. So electric trim is good. Now we're going to do the autopilot test. So I hit the autopilot test switch here. All the lights come on. You can see all the autopilot lights come on, and that's good. Actually, I need to set my heading for the autopilot test. So I'm going to bring it around to runway heading. Okay, we're getting kind of a high on the carb heat temperature here, so we're getting an engine monitoring alarm. You can see high carb heat temperature. So the cowl flaps are open. So we're just going to keep an eye on that. Probably not getting a lot of airflow because we are getting a tailwind right here too, so probably a good idea to get this turned into wind and see if we can cool it down. Let's taxi out and get that into wind and see if we can cool that off. You can just see it's still in the green, but it's right at the limit there. So we want to get some cool air flowing here. So I'm going to release the brakes. Air taxi light on. And there's always a guy standing in the way. And we'll just turn into wind here for the rest of our checks. And parking brake is set. And you can see right away that brought your carb heat down. And this is realistic. I've never had that happen before to me, so it's interesting how realistic they make that. Okay, so the autopilot test. Keep going here. Heading bug, we're going to turn it 30 degrees. Oh, what am I heading now? Back. The nose here. So 30 degrees to the left. Okay, we're going to gauge the autopilot master. Autopilot's engaged. Flight director is engaged. Now we're going to gauge heading mode. And we should see the yoke movement observe and the flight director bank left. Now we're going to bring the heading bug to the right. 30 degrees. And the same thing, yoke movement observe, flight director bank right. And we're going to disconnect the autopilot. We'll hit disconnect the autopilot now. One press and the autopilot disconnects again, and then we press it again and the flight director disconnects. Elevator trim is set for takeoff. Flaps, we're going to check the operation of the flaps. So we go flaps to approach. Just watch our flaps, and they're indicating approach. Flaps down. Okay, flaps are down, indicating down, and then flaps set for takeoff. Windows closed. How's our temperature? 24 degrees, not too bad. Door annunciator is extinguished. Flight controls, check free and correct. Flight controls are good. Altimeter is set, so the altimeter is 1022, I believe. That looks good. 1022, yep. Okay. Departure is set, so we're going to put in our heading and our track and 13,000 feet. That's set. Takeoff heading is set. Panel lights are set. We don't need anything on right now. And parking brake release, and that completes our run-up checklist. So you see, fairly extensive checklist, and I found it really interesting that we were actually overheating the engine because we had a reverse airflow with a strong tailwind coming up so we weren't getting good airflow through the engine there, and just turning into wind was enough to bring those carb heat temperatures down quite a bit. So really interesting how that's modeled here. Quite amazing. Okay, so we're ready to taxi out for runway 08. So we're going to make a left turn and taxi all the way down to runway 08. And I'll just brief the departure before we get going here. So we're going to be departing off runway 08. Initial climb will be assigned by ATC. It's going to be up to WN 520, then 521, 522, and then RTT. And we're going to climb up to our cruise altitude of 13,000 feet. And there's no other altitude restrictions, just some air speeds. And we're going to climb at 140 knots, so no problem with those air restrictions there. Our required visibility ceiling 1,300 feet, visibility 1,500. So we have that, no problem. So that's our departure. Okay, so let's head on out and get going. Okay, release the parking brake. A little bit of power. Exit lights on. Yeah, I've done a few flights in this airplane, and yeah, I have a lot of interesting things happen. Like I said, I had one where I was idling too long with the mixtures rich and fouled my engine and had to abort the takeoff. I had another instance where with a turbocharged engine on this airplane, you don't have to lean the mixture until you hit critical altitude, which is about 20,000 feet. And in the climb, I was climbing up to 24,000 feet, and I forgot to lean the mixtures above critical altitude. And then when I leveled off and brought the power back, the engines quit on me because I had the mixtures too rich. So lots of things you really have to keep on top of this airplane. Luckily, such a high altitude, I was able to get them restarted, no problem. I don't think I even lost more than about 500 feet of altitude before I got the engines going again. But yeah, lots of things you have to really be aware of with this airplane. Things that don't really happen in the Sobo Baron because the systems aren't modeled so in depth. So still got the mixtures at half for the takeoff here, or for the taxi, I mean. Cowl flaps, we'll leave them closed till we get in the air. This airplane with the turbocharger, it performs really well, especially in a cold temperature right here, where right now, we're just around 0, so we should be climbing above 2,000 feet per minute. This airplane on today, no problem. So we'll do an intersection takeoff from here. We don't need to backtrack. Still leaves us well above 5,000 feet of runway. Lots of runway for this airplane. Okay, holding short. We'll just get everything ready to go right up to our takeoff. I'll just set the parking brake, taxi light off. We'll continue with our checklist. So we've got the run-ups complete. We'll do the before takeoff checklist. So cabin pressurization mode, we'll put that in pressure. Door seal mode, we'll activate the door seals. Mixture, we'll go full mixture, full rich. Oil temperatures are minimum 24 degrees. Boost pumps are off. Just get rid of the yoke here. Boost pumps are off. Air conditioning is off. Landing lights, we'll put them on. Landing lights are on. Transponder, we'll put an alt mode. And the weather radar, we don't need it right now. I'll just leave it in standby. So that is our before takeoff checklist complete. Go to the takeoff checklist. It'll be throttles full open, brakes release, engine instruments check, gear up, positive rate. We'll track the flaps at 100 knots. Autopilot will engage, and then we'll observe our pressurization as we climb up. So that's our takeoff check. And I'm not going to have that up for the takeoff. We'll just do all those items. Okay, so we are good to go. I'll turn my strobe light on as well. And we'll say it's clear to the right, clear to the left. We've been clear to takeoff on the Rattenberg to Quebec up to 11,000 feet. Parking brake is released. And the pitot heat, don't need it on right now. Visible moisture below 4 degrees, I believe. So temperature is 0, but once we get into cloud, we'll turn it on. But we should be good right now. Good wind blowing down the runway here. Okay, we get lined up, check our heading, looks good. Start bringing up the power, just advance it slowly, and we'll be going right to red line on the manifold and the propeller RPM. Just slowly advance it. T's and P's are looking good. Power full forward, and we're right up to red line on the manifold and the propeller RPM. Airspeed's good. 90 knots, rotate. Positive rate, gear is up. Above 100 knots, flaps can come up. And I'll bring the trim back for 140 knots. So gear is up, flaps are up. We'll engage the autopilot. Autopilot's engaged. And we'll engage the flight director. And we'll engage nav mode. And we're in pitch mode for 140 knots. Nav mode's engaged and looks good. We just checked that our cabin pressure is differential starting to increase. So our takeoff check is good. Got a message there. Arriving at the waypoint. Okay, so the engine's starting to cool off now, so I'll get those cowl flaps closed. It's pretty cold out. I'm going to set my propeller RPM to 2500 for the climb. And I'll bring manifold pressures back to 36 for the climb. So it looks pretty good. And let's take a look outside and see how it looks for departure here. Beautiful day in the valley here in Innsbruck. Cool approaches in here too. It's a great airport to fly into. I have a payware airport for this. I think it's by Orbex. So climbing up pretty good. You can see we're climbing at 2,000 feet per minute. Looks good. So let's do our next checklist, which will be our climb checklist. So takeoff checklist, we did all that. So let's go to our climb checklist. So mixture is max power, propeller 2,500 RPM. Set that. Throttle 36 inches. Cowl flaps, we've closed them. We're monitoring our pressure, so you can see our cabin differentials coming up, and our cabin altitude is staying there, and the cabin is climbing, so it's lovely. We're staying more or less level. So cabin pressure looks good. Air conditioning, so we need a little bit more heat now because so I'll just pull this out a little bit more. This is really hard to monitor because this end doesn't really make it hot in my room here when it gets too hot, so I tend to get too hot on that. So cabin heater is good, and engine performance monitor, so that's our climb check complete. Climbing up, transition is at 10,000 feet, so the climb's coming good. So we're getting some icing, so let's get our pitot heat on, even though we're not in the cloud yet. And we might as well put our windshield prop heat on, and you can see pitot windshield is on and prop heat is cycling, because we are getting some moisture up here. So that's good. Keep our climb going. There's 10,000 feet, so we'll set our altimeter of 1013. We're standard pressure. We'll set it over here as well. Okay, standard pressure is set. And looks like we're going to maybe be... Oh, we got a cabin differential. So there's a checklist for that. So what's happening is the differential is increasing too fast. So we're just in the red here. So what you can do is, you can see it's automatically correct for it. So the differential light's gone out. But if you just pull these out momentarily, it'll stop pressurizing the cabin. And once the cabin altitude catches up and the differential comes down, then you can push them back in. So you can see the differential is kind of tickling the maximum here. So if I just pull out the cabin pressure, you can see it immediately jumps up and the differential goes out. So you just give it a minute. There's 1,000 feet to go. So I'll let the cabin increase a little bit, the differential come down. Just coming up to 13,000 feet. Okay, I'll put those back in, and then we'll just monitor that as we level off here. Okay, so we level off, and we haven't even gotten up to RTT yet. So, like I said, this plane climbs really good. So I'll just show you the checklist for this. There is a checklist. So if we go to it is high pressure differential. So first thing you can do is, especially if you're level, is you can change the cabin altitude goal. So you can change it higher, and it's probably a good idea. I'm going to put it up to 14,000, and that'll help keep that under control a little bit better. And then if it doesn't descend, then you would pull the cabin shutoffs here to. So I'm not going to go through the rest of the checklist, but there is a checklist to try to get it under control. If you can't fix it, then you're going to have to start a descent. Okay, so we're just in cloud here, but not too bad. I think we'll just stay at this altitude. So now we set up for our cruise, so let's adjust our course, 051. So for cruise, we want to set about 2400 RPM and 33 inches of manifold pressure. That looks good. And you can see how fast this airplane cruises compared to the normal Baron there. So we did a cabin altitude differential. I'm going to crank that up a little bit more. I find this happens all the time with this airplane. I'm not sure if it's a normal thing, but we will pull those out. Let the differential drop a bit. And we'll put the back in. Okay, so yeah, we're back to setting our cruise. So let's do our cruise checklist here. So cruise checklist, cowl flaps are closed. Landing light, shut that off. pitot heat on if OAT is less than 4, which it is. Windshield heat as required, prop as required, surface de-ice as required. So we're kind of just, well, actually we're above the cloud now. I don't think we're gonna encounter any more cloud. I'll shut them off for now. So windshield and prop de-ice can go off. We got the cabin differential again. Try cranking that up a little bit more. See if we can bring that down. There we go, it's out now. Fuel imbalance, so we want to check our fuels are pretty even in on the tip tanks. Tank transfer, we'll turn those on. And you can see the little lights come on showing the transfer pumps are operating, and there's our fuel right now in the tanks. We'll just monitor that. Mixture, we're going to lean for rich of peak. So the way you lean the propellers, so we haven't reached our critical altitude, so the mixtures are still at full. So it suggests you just bring them back a little bit. So I bring them back until I can start to see the exhaust gas temperatures register some change here. And then if you want to lean rich of peak, you just hit the lean fine button and you lean rich of peak. And if you want to lean at peak, then you just hit the center here. It simulates pushing both buttons till you get lean at peak. Rich at peak will be your fastest cruise altitude. Temperature is 18, that's not bad. I'm going to just bring that out a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to lean rich at peak, so I just bring the mixtures slowly back. And we're going to bring them back till we see peak EGT on both these engines here. Slowly, slowly bring them back. There's peak EGT on the right and peak EGT on the left. So I stop leaning the mixtures, and now I'm going to bring them forward, and I'm going to bring them forward until I go 50, minus 50, which is rich at peak. So I just keep increasing these. You want basically 50 to 75. So I'll go with 50 just to keep the fuel burn a little bit lower. And that's your rich at peak fuel setting. So there we go. So that's pretty good. That's pretty close. 50 right on there. And so that's our rich at peak. And we're burning about 26, so 52 gallons an hour. So that is good. Propeller RPM 25, I'm going to leave it at 24. 33 in the manifold. Cabin heat is good. Air conditioning not required. Cabin heater is good. Pressurization monitor, so it's looking better now. Stay in there. I'll leave that where it is. Engine performance monitor, and that is it. It doesn't say it, but good time to turn the prop sync on here too, because we'll sync those props up. So that's our cruise check complete. A lot of stuff to do in this airplane, but now we're all set up for cruise, and let's see how we're looking for true airspeed. So not uncommon to get 250 on this aircraft, so let's go to 13,000 feet. So you bring 13,000 feet, look at our outside air temperature is about minus 19, minus 20. So we bring, this is minus 30, it's minus 20 right there, so we bring 13,000 feet right below minus So there's 13,000 feet, about 1920 right there. And you can see there's 220, and this goes off the scale here because this is the same gauge as the normally aspirated Baron. And I believe it's safe to cruise in this yellow as long as it's not turbulent air, as long as it's still air like we have today. We can safely cruise in that yellow band, otherwise we should be slowing down a little bit. So we got 220, probably I would say 230 something, probably 235. Another way you can check on here is you can go to your utilities and you can do a true airspeed check, user sensor data. Doing 239 is our true airspeed, so there you go. So that looks good, so that's our true airspeed check. Yeah, so it looks good. So we got a little ways to cruise here, just kind of show you where we are on the flight plan. So we're just off the departure now. We're on our en route segment to Nimal here. So let's enjoy the view of the beautiful Alps here. Kind of get out of the valley there, and it looks like there's no snow to the north here. Looks nice. Lots of snow to the south. Beautiful. Okay, so I'll check in with you in a few minutes. We'll get some weather, get set up for our arrival into Linz, and we'll also calculate our descent profile into Linz as well. Get the map back on here. All looking good there. Just double check our course. Should be 061. Okay, nice. I'll check in with you in a few minutes. Nice cruise here going. This is a nice fast airplane. And pressurized, we can get right up to 25,000 feet if we need to with this airplane, if we need to get above the weather or get some better winds for cruise. Right now we got a good, little bit of a headwind, so not too bad. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, the cruise is going pretty good here, so let's take a look at our plan to come into Linz here. So the arrival is pretty straightforward. It just coming in by Nimal, 8,000 feet or above, and we're going to Arasa at 8,000 feet or above for our transition. So just the 2 waypoints there, and you can see them on here, and then we have a transition to get on to the RNAV approach. So the transition onto the RNAV is basically from Arasa, and it's going to do a downwind and then come into final at Linz. And then the RNAV approach is going to be from Linz straight in for runway 08. And yeah, they got the LPV, takes us down to 200 feet, but the weather is not too bad. It's just scattered cloud there right now. So that's the approach. So we'll get those loaded up. So for our descent profile, let's plan, I think if we plan to be at 4,000 feet at Linz, that should, with all that transition, that should easily keep us 8,000 feet or above at Arasa, so we'll just monitor that. So we'll put Linz in at 4,000 feet and do a VNAV calculation based on that. So let's load that stuff up. Put that back to 13. Okay, so let's go to our utilities, VNAV profile. We want to be 4,000 feet. Oh, we got to load the approach first. So we've loaded the arrival. So let's go back to procedures, load the approach. We're going to do the RNAV 08. The transition will be the Aero 1 Charlie. That looks right there, and we'll load that approach. And now we'll have the waypoints in there. So we are doing the arrival from Nimal to Arasi, and then we got all the waypoints coming into Linz. Looks good. We want to be at Linz at 4,000 feet. So let's do that for our VNAV calc. So 4,000. And we'll do 1,000 foot per minute descent, and we'll do it right at 0 miles before. And we want the first Linz, which is the approach, And you can see we've got 18 minutes to our top of descent. So, got lots of time to get that set up. So, what we can do first is we can just, I'll put the chart in for the approach so we have that as a backup ready to go. So we'll LOWL, go to approaches, we'll select the RNAV RMP08, and we'll have that there just if we need it for the chart. So there's the approach. We can throw in the ATIS in the secondary radio just to get the weather. So 12813. Push 128. Oh no, that's the VOR, sorry. We want the comm radio 128. So that's in the secondary radio, approaching VNAV profile, not quite yet. Okay, so that's set there, and we can just select the number 2 to monitor it when it pops up, so we'll get a little closer. So next thing I'll do is I'll go to the flight plan and I'll verify all the waypoints and altitudes. So we are going from Nimal to Arasa, and then from Arasa we're going Whiskey Lima 812, 802. These are all 5,000, 4,000 feet or above. So we got 802, 812, 5,000 feet above, 802, 807. 808 and Lindsay and 5 and all 4,000 feet or above, they're all good. And then for the approach, we've got Lindsay, then 803, that's 3,000 feet or above, and then the runway after that, so that looks good. And then we got the missed approach, 623, and then back to Lindsay, and that's at 4,000 feet. So that all looks good. So all the approach looks good. So we'll just monitor cabin pressure is looking good, cabin temperature is looking good, fuel is almost transferred out of the tip tanks there. It's pretty much zero, and the pumps just shut off. So perfect timing, just shut those off. So that's our fuel transfer complete. And we can also get some weather on here for our arrival into. So the weather is 0205 knots, good visibility, few clouds, overcast 6,000. 2 degrees, 1026 on the altimeter. When we start our descent, transition will be 10,000 feet. So yeah, not bad weather there. Okay, so I think we have everything set up, ready to go. So I'll check in with you when we get a little closer to our top of descent, which is, oh, another thing I'll show you on, they've added this to the PMS 50 GTN750, and you know how you're able to have 4 highlighted display items here, like track, distance, wind. You can select different items in your menu here. So you go, you change your fields, and then you can click on a field and you can select something different. So if you want something different than direct track, then you can select something else to go display there. Well, now they also have an option to have multiple fields. So you see I have 3 up here. So all you do is click here between en route and GPS, and it switches between the 3 different panels. So this one I have set up, the second one is for showing when my top of descent is and what speed I need to achieve that descent rate. So if I start now, my top of descent point based on Lindsay for 4,000 feet, I can start now at 370 feet per minute and I'll hit Lindsay at 4,000 feet. But I calculated based on 1,000, so I've got 13 minutes and 54 seconds to go till I hit that top of descent point based on that calculation of 1,000 feet per minute. And then I have another one set up for just gives me information for total ETA to destination, estimated time arrival at destination, estimated time en route. So we got 24 minutes to go. We got 93 miles to go. Ground speed, so you can have different ones. And the way you select that is you go back to setting, system, setup, and you go to options, and then at the bottom you can select number of map field pages, and I have 3 set up. I'm not sure how many you can have, but I'm not going to change it because I have it all set up, but that's how you change that. So it's nice. You can have different phases of flight. So this is my normal cruise. When I get close to the top of the descent, I'll put this page up, and then if I want to just look at my estimated time of arrival at the airport, how far I got to go, I'll just bring that page up, and then I'll go back to this for normal cruise. And I have my wind, ground speed, distance to the next waypoint, and track that I need. So good info. So I'll keep this up because we are getting close to the top of the descent. I want to keep an eye on that and see how things are going. So yeah, so I'll check in with you when we're a couple minutes back. We'll start our descent and do our descent checklist coming into Linz. I'll see you there in about 10 minutes or so. Okay, we're just coming up 3 minutes back from our top of descent, so let's try and get the ATIS. So I'll just select up here monitor COM2 where we have the ATIS dialed in.
Linz Airport information.
There we go.
1500 Zulu. Wind 016 at 5. Visibility 6. Sky condition, few clouds at 3,400 feet, ceiling 4,800 feet broken. Temperature 2.10. Altimeter 30.30. ILS runway 08 in use. Landing and departing runway 08. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact UF Golf.
Okay, so not too bad. Just some high broken cloud, good visibility, winds out of the east, landing runway 08, which we're planning. For some reason, Microsoft Flight Sim always gives you the ATIS with the millibars or inches of mercury 3030. I think it was 1026. Anyway, we can set it either way. And yeah, so we'll do that through 10,000 feet. So we got a couple minutes to go. Another thing we can do is on the arrival, there is quite a long segment to go downwind, and Lizzie is quite ways out. So if I want to shorten up this segment, which can take off, you can see 15 track miles, we can just delete these 2 waypoints and go from 802 to Lindsay, and then shorten up our arrival. So let's say that ATC is going to approve that for us, so we can go into our flight plan, and we can see we want to go from 802 to Lindsay, so we're going to delete 807 and 808. So if I just go remove, and 808 remove, and now it goes from 802 to Lindsay. We go back to the map, and we see that shortened up nicely for us. Now that's going to get rid of our VNAV, because it now is confused, so I just have to go back in here and select 802 Lindsay again, and then it'll give us to it. So now we need to just start our descent right away to make that altitude, because we've shortened 15 miles off our track. So if I go to map, so we've already passed, and I need 1,100 feet per minute, so let's start our descent. So what I'll do is I'll dial in 4,000 feet. And now in order to make that, we need about 1,200 feet per minute, so I'll go vertical speed, and you can do that up here. You can select push to get vertical speed, and then dial it back down, and you see down, vertical speed down, and I'll dial in 1,200 feet per minute, and I'll bring the power back so we don't get going too fast here. Bring it back to about 23. Okay, so monitor our speed. We got our descent going, and we'll just monitor our vertical speed required on the way in. Got a message at waypoint Sarah. We're definitely at 8,000 feet or above, so that looks good. Pitot heat is on. If we go through cloud, we might need the wind shield and the prop the ice, so we'll monitor that. So let's do our descent checklist. So checklist, descent checklist. So altitude, let's set our elevation, altitude, field elevation, which is 1,000 feet. So we'll set our field elevation of 1,000 feet. So cabin altitude set for 1,000 feet. Cowl flaps are still closed. Throttle we reduce. Mixtures will enrich just a little bit. Sorry, props keep there. Mixtures will just reach a little bit, not all the way. Engine performance will monitor. Want to make sure our cylinder head temperatures don't get too hot here, so we'll keep the cowl flaps closed, and we want to make sure that it stays above 116. And tip tank transfer is complete and the pumps are off, so that's our descent checklist. So that's looking good. We're getting a little bit of windshield de-ice. Now one thing, when you turn on the windshield de-ice, you can see it's kind of just opaque here. It does a nice simulation of the ice on there. Oh, it's actually going away. But I find it clears it up too fast, and it clears up on the sides like it wouldn't clear up on the sides at all. Maybe a defrost would do, but the windshield should only clear up at the front. So it's not simulated great, but so we'll monitor our descent, making a turn now. Our next track is 263. Put that in. Get our heading going. Going through 10,000 feet. Let's set 3030. Which is 1026. That's pretty good. Okay, so descent's going good. Altimeter is good. We'll set it over here as well. Starting to get warm in the cabin, so I find as you descend, you have to kind of push this in a little bit. So I'll push it in. Just keeping an eye on the temperature. It's not too warm, 23. And to see your altitude selected, you just want to verify 4,000 feet is selected there. We're still in vertical speed at 1,200 feet per minute. Actually, we need to get up to 1,500 feet per minute. So let's go 15. Pull the power back a little bit more. Another thing you can monitor with the this EDM, I'm really just learning this EDM 760. There's a lot of features on it, but you can cycle through bunch of different things to monitor, and this one here is your rate of cooling on your EGTs. So basically, you want to keep this rate from getting too low. So right now it's showing -5 degrees Fahrenheit per minute, and it's quite low, the maximum, like -50, I think. But you want to make sure that you're not cooling off you're not shock cooling your engine, so you can kind of monitor that. There's other things you can monitor on here: battery OET, differential pressure, fuel flow, gallons used, like just an enormous amount of stuff you can monitor on here. Horsepower is another good one. You can check your horsepower if you want to get max horsepower. Anyway, I'll go back to the cylinder head temperature cooling, and we want to keep that from getting too low. So speed's good. How's our descent? Looking good now. So we come around a corner. By the time we get to Linz, we want to arm the approach, and we should see the approach come up. Our glide slope come up, and we should be able to arm the approach. So we're getting a little bit of icing, so now we can turn on the prop and windshield de-ice. And it kind of clears up really fast, especially on the side here. The side would take forever to clear if you were using it like a defrost. See how much fast that clears up? Probably not very realistic, but anyway. Don't see anything on the wing. No, don't see any icing on the wings. You can cycle this here, but it doesn't seem to really clear anything off on the wings. So it might be simulated performance-wise, but it's probably not. It doesn't show anything visually when it clears up. Unlike the Cessna 414, when you hit the de-ice boots, it actually clears it off for you. So we're going to bring the power back. We're getting pretty fast here. Descent's looking good. 1,500 feet per minute. Cabin temperature is cooling off. I'm just going to leave it where it is. So coming in nicely. You can see our glide path is coming in, so that means the approach is available to be armed. So I'll arm the approach. And you can see approach is armed. Glide slope is armed. And it should just show coupled once we intercept the glide slope here. Our minimums are 200 feet rattle, and we can set that 200 feet rattle, but it's visual, so shut off the prop and windshield now. We should be good. Check our temperature. Still below zero, so I'll keep the pitot heat on for now. So your gear speeds and flap speeds are right here, but they're also right here. So 152 is your first stage of flap and your gear speed. So we need to get below 152, which is a little triangle here. And full flap is 122, which is the top of the white arc here. So we need to get below those to get our flap out. So there's the runway there. Slowing down now as we level off of 4,000 feet. Still waiting to intercept the glide path. So I'll select the approach flap as soon as we get below the 152. Put in our inbound track as 083. Just keep in mind these course needles don't change automatically. So let's get the first flap out. We're below 152. I'll keep our speed under control. A little bit of power back. So speed's good. I'll keep about 140, and when we get about 1,500 feet, I'll get the gear down and then get below 120. We'll select our approach flap. So that looks good. So let's get our checklist ready for the approach checklist. So seatbelts, we'll say secure. Check cabin differential. So that's coming pretty close, coming down nicely. So let's keep an eye on that. Fuel selectors are on. Fuel and balance. Fuels are balanced. Tip tank transfer is complete. Landing light we'll put on. Pitot heat on if less than 4 degrees, so it is. Windshield heat off. Propeller heat off. Air conditioning off. Cowl flaps, we'll keep them. Temperatures are looking good on the cylinder heads. We'll keep them where they are. Mixtures will go max power. Flaps approach. And approach. And that is our approach checklist. Okay, we're coming up to 3,000 feet, 2,000 feet above ground. I'll get the gear down. And watch the speed come back. Okay, I'm going to set our missed approach altitude. 4,000 feet is set since we've captured the glide path, and you can tell you're captured by it says coupled glide slope right there. So I'll bring the power back because we want to get below 120 for the approach flap, and let's just look at our landing checklist. So landing checklist, cabin differential, it's coming to 0, so it should be at 0 by the time we get on the ground. Propellers will go full high RPM, mixture, max power. Flaps approach right now, we'll get below 120, we can select land flap. So gear is down, flaps are down, and autopilot disconnect once we get short of landing there. So it's looking pretty good. So we got bringing a little bit of power. I'm going to keep about 100 knots. I want to fly blue line, which is right around 100 knots here until we're short of landing. So we got about 1,000 feet to go. So gear is down, flaps are down. We got mixtures full forward, props full forward, speed is good. So we just disengage the autopilot and land straight ahead. We'll clear off to the left. Yeah, so this airplane can be quite a handful to fly. You forget things, it's easy to get yourself in trouble. Just watching the cabin pressurization, differentials coming down good there. So I'll just shut these off for now. We'll dump those because we're coming into land. Speed's a little bit high, bring the power back. to 100 knots there. And last thing we want to do, it doesn't say in the checklist, but should put your prop sync off. Okay, autopilot flight director off. I think our landing is pretty much assured right now, so going to start bringing back the power a little bit, bleeding off some speed. Looking for about 90 knots coming over the threshold there. Get a little bit low. Not too bad though. Start reducing the power. And touchdown. Welcome to Linz, Austria. Okay, we got that heater going. It's pretty cold in here. It's 23 degrees, so keep that, maybe push this in a little bit more. Get closer. Might as well keep the heat on for now. Get on the brakes. Brakes are good. And we'll take our first exit to the left here. Pretty busy here in Linz, lots of airplanes. Okay, we'll clear off to the runway. Oh, if you bring the throttles back too low, your alternators will just kick out. So all you gotta do is just advance your power a little bit, just to get it off the bottom there, to keep those alternators from shutting off. Okay, we'll bring it to a stop, clear the runway, set our parking brake. And we'll go to our checklist, and we'll do our after landing checklist. So cowl flaps, we can open them now. Cowl flaps are open. You can see the carb heat temperatures are starting to come up a little bit. Cowl flaps are open. Flaps can go up. Cabin differential is 0. Cabin pressure dump, we already did that. Door seal is off, we already did that. Weather radar still in standby, we never used it. Lights, we got our landing light off, strobe light off, put our taxi light on. Ice protection, we can shut all our pitot heat off. And our stall and warning lights, or warning heat off. Air conditioning as desired. We'll keep the heater on for now until we get there. And cabin heat, or air conditioning not required, but we'll keep the cabin heat on. That's our after landing checklist. Okay, so we'll park and brake off. We'll just taxi straight ahead and park. GA parking is just in front of the hangar straight ahead. Yeah, a great little flight in the Baron. This is the perfect airplane for these flights in the mountains and the Alps. You pressurize, you can get up nice and high. It's a really fast airplane, cruises really nice. Not too much slower than the King Air actually. Easy to get 330 to 345 true airspeed out of this airplane. So burns a lot of gas though, but if you lean it back, you can probably save about 30% fuel and only lose about maybe 10% of your true airspeed. So really, really nice airplane, lots of versatility, and the systems are really nicely modeled. Okay, we'll just park into the right here. Okay, that looks good. Parking brake set. Okay. Get our taxi light off, and we'll do our shutdown and secure checklist. So parking brake is set. Avionics can go off. All sub-panel switches off. So we can shut off the heater now. So we take that vent blower down to low, turn off the gas heater. You can hear the heater shut off there. Temperature is pretty good, 16. Throttles we can close. So throttles are all the way at idle. Propeller, high RPM, mixture idle cutoff. Whoops. You get away from me there. Okay, idle cutoff. Lost our checklist there. So mixture's idle cutoff. Magnetos can go off. Alternators off. And battery off. And parking brake release. If once we had chocks in, I'll just keep it on for now. So that's it. Welcome to Linz. That was a great flight in the Baron. Truly a great airplane. If you want a challenging airplane to fly, definitely worth the upgrade for about $30 US. It's a great upgrade to the stock Baron in the sim, and highly recommended. You get two versions. You get the normally aspirated version, and this is the turbocharged and pressurized version, so it gives you lots of versatility. Yeah, so great airplane. Highly recommended for anyone who's looking for this type of GA flying. And yeah, thanks for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy it, take time, hit that like button, share, subscribe, sign up for notifications, and hopefully see you next time on the Bandit Flight Simmer channel. Have a good day. Bandit out.